I felt like he was in a huge advantage going into that entire series, but I mean, we've all been there before, where it just feels like it's just a domino effect. One thing goes wrong, and all of a sudden, everything just keeps crumbling down.
He was talking about how he's an emotional player, has trouble containing that sometimes, and if you're prone to tilt and you make a crucial mistake, that can just compound itself through the rest of the match.
Certainly. But it's not over for either of those players. Congratulations to Sweep going 5-0. One of a few players, I think one of two other players who are going to be there so far. But he'll be joined by the winner of Surrender versus Malygos TW. I'm not going to even try to pronounce the phonetic spelling of his actual name. But one thing that's really cool about Malygos' lineup is that, remember last year when he came to the championship, he was saying that he has to play Malygos decks because it just feels like he named himself Malygos. It's the same thing here. He brought Malygos Rogue and Malygos Druid, a deck we haven't seen in a minute and a half right now.
So not the only one-turn kill combo deck in the tournament. Did just see that coming from Zhao in here, but it will actually just be the Warlock Mirror match.
Okay.
No Malygos in this game, sadly. But this is...
Very disappointed.
This is a matchup we've seen quite a bit of. This can come down very much to the specific choices the players make just from the get-go in terms of the cards in their decks. They actually have very similar decks, both containing Ragnaros, the Fire Lord, which can be a very important minion in the matchup as a finisher, along with the Leroy Jenkins combo, which can also be a very powerful way to close out games when they go late.
Yeah, Surrender, a player that's relatively known amongst the Western scene. He, of course, is one of the practice partners for 6-0 and has actually been one of the people pioneering Secret Paladin in its early iterations, giving it to 6-0, who, of course,
Surrender looks very excited. He's just kind of shaking his hands and shaking his head in anticipation. I love watching animated players like that, on screen. They really make the game that much more entertaining. But Mountain Giant coming down for both players.
Ooh, you do not want to be the player going second when it comes to Mountain Giant, because you're always afraid of Face Manipulator or Chamber to follow it up, and then you can get punished for it. Looks like Surrender doesn't have said punish, though, immediately. And instead has a couple of makeshift ways to deal with it. He's got like Shadow Bolt and Soulfire, for example. I guess there are some cards that you don't mind ditching. Imp Gang Boss, for example. I don't think that's going to be a high impact card at all.
None of the truly crucial cards are in his hand here, and it will be Refreshment Vendor.
Sure.
Certainly when you're hitting your opponent with Mountain Giant, you don't mind getting rid of that one. But there is the Coin Sylvanas here, which is never a response you like to see to your Mountain Giant.
Yeah, and I mean, Surrender's got 15 damage right now, just on turn 6.
Yeah.
And Mountain Giant can really accelerate the pace of this game a lot. Emperor Thor's comes to the hand, and normally you'd be happy to drop it, but it just plays too well into Sylvanas, and this is one of the powers of Sylvanas in this matchup specifically.
Yeah, Sylvanas definitely a rough card for Surrender to deal with from this position. Has no easy way to get it off the board without potentially giving the opponent significant value. He could just play the Imp Gang Boss and attack straight into the face, just kind of gamble. Maybe if his opponent attacks the Mountain Giant, he just gets the Imp Gang Boss.
Right.
Surrender does have, as you mentioned, a lot of damage, and that could represent the ability for him to just close the game out just immediately in a turn or so. Though there is definitely the threat from Malygos TW or Shan-Shia, as you see on your screen. Yeah, he is just going to go with the sort of gamble play here, kind of hoping that he's able to keep that Mountain Giant after the trade, and hoping that there's no way for his opponent to clear off the Imp Gang Boss and the Imp. The fact that it's Imp Gang Boss specifically also makes this even more of a difficult situation. There is the possible play of attack into Imp Gang Boss, Mortal Coil the Imp, and then just power overwhelming your Sylvanas to steal the Mountain Giant, which looks like it might be what he's going for.
Yeah, I think Hellfire.
Or just Hellfire as well.
It does reduce your health down to 9, which means if your opponent has a Leroy Jenkins, you're probably just dead. Soulfire was used though. Ooh, interesting. Faceless Manipulator. Now, does that introduce anything else that you might want to be able to do here?
I think you just have to get this Mountain Giant off the board at this point. I don't think you're in a position where you can use all of your mana copying something and just say go. Voidwalker?
Yeah, Voidwalker does introduce a lot of improper trades for your opponent. And looks like Malygos is going to take advantage of the Mountain Giant on the board.
But Surrender, as you mentioned, a lot of burn already, and there is no... Whew, Leroy picked up. He can just health. If he wants to, he could just play Hellfire or Abyssal this turn, and then he just has Leroy PO available next turn if there's no taunt or heal from Malygos here.
What's the punish on the other end?
Abyssal Enforcer also opens a possible trade just with the Mountain Giant.
Yeah, and there's no Shambler in the deck.
Yeah,
so that is less likely for him to be able to taunt up, just less targets.
I mean, this is basically demanding your opponent Renos here. There's no Reno. You can't tap into Reno. Even trading into this minion is not enough.
Yeah,
Emperor is just lethal.
Wow. Maybe Malygos got a little bit gung-ho with the Voidwalker initially.
Yeah.
Maybe needed to hold on to it for a little bit because he knows turn 7 is the Abyssal Enforcer turn, and that's going to wrap up the game. Surrender is going to go 4-1, and effectively also most likely going to eliminate Malygos. It's going to be really hard for him to come back unless he gets some miracle tiebreakers.
Yeah, 2 losses at this stage of the tournament, it definitely puts you in a rough situation when it comes to making top 8. There will be a handful of players who do make the cut, but you need to generally be among the players who loses later on in the tournament. Get your first or second loss later on in the tournament in order to have those breakers.
We have a lot of updates, so let's go ahead and check the leaderboard so we can show you guys who is currently undefeated. We have 3 players. We have Sweep, who you saw took down Joan. We have Tom60229, who you saw on the feature stage. And we have the man himself, Lojum, bringing the Healadin, bringing the anti-aggro Warlock. Bring in his control, Sleep with the Fishes warrior. This guy is the player to watch the tournament.
He's my hero right now, frankly. I love his lineup, and it's actually really interesting to me that no players brought anything remotely similar. This is the only Paladin that we've seen, the only just mid-range Warlock that we've seen.
Yeah.
Sort of joking with a number of pro players on social media about, oh, you don't have to worry about drawing Reno if you just don't play Reno in your control decks. You just play all the good cards against the aggressive decks, just 2 copies.
Yeah, and don't even have to worry necessarily because you're most likely going to draw into an answer. It's so low curve. It's just as low curve as the Pirate decks.
Yeah.
It tops out at 5. That sounds really familiar, except they're topping out Leroy Jenkins, and he's topping out at taunts and heals.
Yeah,
so it feels like
he's his second-rate bruiser.
Yeah, I know. It's hilarious.
Not worrying about beating control. People have, at most 2 Reno decks in their lineup, mostly the rest of their aggro. Yeah, you ban one of the Reno decks, just beat up on the aggro decks. I love it.
Yeah, Loljam just wrecking the Pirates, sending them down one by one. And I can't wait to see more to finish up the Swiss rounds. We are 5 rounds in. Let's head over to TJ, over the chalkboard, and get more updates on what's happening at this playoffs.
Thanks very much, guys. I'm here to update you guys on what's happening with our picks here. We haven't had much success over the first couple of playoffs with Europe and North America, so going to see if we have some luck here. But first off, I'm going to go ahead and eliminate the player who's the only one who's mathematically out right now, and that's going to be Kranich. So unfortunately for Kranich, he has no hope. At 0-3 currently, Kranich has no hope of making it through. We do have a couple players, though, that have very good chances. I'm going to go ahead and circle their names. One surprise for a lot of people is Pipiko. He had a little bit of a rough start, even though he won his match. And it looks like his stamina is holding true. So Pipiko, at 4-1, is currently in good position to make it through to the top 8 for the Swiss round. And as for the rest, we have Surrender as well, who's 4-1. He's going to make it through. And for the rest of these guys, they're technically still in. Gun to Flame is at a 3-2 score. Karakute as well is at a 3-2 score. Naviute, Flurry, and Shonger are also at a 3-2 score. So they can all technically make it. It all depends on those tiebreakers. One thing to note is that since there's a smaller player pool for Asia Pacific, it means that there will be more players that are at 5-2 that can make it through for the tiebreakers. So all these players that are currently sitting at 3-2, they have a little bit of a better shot than they would have if they were playing in Europe or North America. So I will keep you guys updated on this board. We're definitely gonna have a lot more success now. We have a lot more players in as we approach the end of day number 1 here than we did in the other regions. So we'll see if the caches hold true, and we'll see if some of these guys can make it into that top 8. But we're about getting ready to jump into round number 6. Let's go ahead and send it over to Raven and Sottle, who are gonna give us some more on the action.